Get ready for an inspiring episode of Prairie Sportsman. Join us as we explore the rise in popularity of high school archery teams and meet the young athletes who are mastering the art of archery. Plus, we'll take a closer look at the ongoing research to prevent the spread of aquatic invasive species and protect our natural resources. And we'll join Nicole Zempel for a fast forage. I'm Brett Amundsen, and the show starts right now.
Funding for Prairie Sportsman is provided by the Minnesota Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund, as recommended by the Legislative Citizen Commission on Minnesota Resources, and by Mark and Margaret Yackel-Julien on behalf of Shalom Hill Farm, a retreat and conference center in a prairie setting near Windham, Minnesota, on the web at shalomhillfarm.org, and by Live Wide Open, Western Minnesota Prairie Waters, and the members of Pioneer PBS.
The National Archery in the Schools program has put bows in the hands of more than 18 million students, grades 4 through 12. The program's goal is to change lives one arrow at a time, as students learn focus, self-control, discipline, and patience. The Lakes International Language Academy, a Forest Lake charter school, has fewer than 1,300 K-12 students, but its competitive archery teams are among the best in the country.
We started out with probably about 10, 15 kids in the club.
This year we're 60 kids. When I first started this team, I didn't think I would ever see this many kids.
We've got a lot of really promising shooters that are coming up that are taking it really seriously. You can tell that they're really into it. Last year, when we won the state tournament, it was the first time that Leela had ever qualified as a team for a national tournament. And so we were like beside ourselves with joy that we could take the full team.
The high school team placed third in the 2022 3D national competition.
There are two kinds of targets. There's bullseye and 3D. The bullseye is the one that's going to be more common when people think, oh, archery, it's that kind of the yellow, red, blue, different color circles. You get a bullseye if it's the one right in the middle, and that's the one most people start out on. When you go to 3D, that is when you have replicas of animals that are standing at various distances away, and you're trying to shoot. It isn't exact circles, actually. It's spaces where the vital organs could be, and you're trying to get within those circles the different point values.
When we stopped by Leela's archery practice, students were getting ready for the 2023 state competition. At that tournament, held in March, Leela's middle and high school teams brought home first and second place medals in the bullseye and 3D events. In April, at the Western National Tournament in Utah, the high school team placed first in bullseye and took first in 3D.
Minnesota's Lakes International Language Academy.
And Jamison Rydeen placed first in both events. The championship performance was an emotional season finale for the team's three seniors: Captain Sophia Johnson, Brooklyn Corbett, and Nakai Martinez.
I mean, after 10 years, it's kind of like an era is ending and I'm not ready for it yet.
Basically, we do everything together. We put stuff up together, we shoot together, we encourage each other.
It is definitely like a family here, and we all get to know each other, and we go out and have fun, and we hang out more than just at practice and at tournaments.
I'm a competitive person. I'd be a liar if I didn't find a lot of enjoyment in the success, how that shows on kids' faces.
So what I like about archery is it's a team sport and also an individual sport. So you can work for a personal best, and even if you don't do as well, your score also contributes to the overall team score too.
Every match consists of 8 rounds. 4 rounds at 10 meters, 4 rounds at 15 meters on a bullseye range, okay? The first round at each distance is a practice round, and then you shoot 5 arrows in each subsequent round, and those 5 arrows are used to create your score for that round. And the scores range from a perfect 10, dead center on the target, out to a 1, the furthest ring outside on that bail. If you get all 5 10s, you get a perfect 50, and it's a perfect round. So the max score is 300. You shoot a perfect 50, and it's reason to celebrate. As coaches, we go up and we announce. When someone gets a perfect 50, announce it, everyone applauds for them, and they get a pin.
This is where I put all my pins. I've gotten, one of them fell off, but I think it's like 19 or something in the 8 years I've been doing archery. We have a lot of people that shoot a lot of 50s here, so we generally only give them out to the first 3 50s of each year.
I've been shooting for 10 years, so they kind of like rack up. This year I think I'm at 3. So, but in total, I think I'm around like 50.
We had to start limiting how many pins we give archers during practice, because we have some archers that would walk away with a wheelbarrow full. We don't stop celebrating, but we don't give them a pin.
When you're shooting 3D, there are no colors. So you can't always be, okay, I'm gonna aim for kind of on the side of this yellow. You can't do that because it's an animal. So you have to look at it and say, I'm gonna look at where this leg is, and I'm gonna bring my bow up from there, and I'm gonna shoot once I get to the top of the animal. Typically, it'll be kind of a center-ish circle on where the heart would be, and then there'll be kind of oblong, almost oval-like shapes around that circle. So the center circle will be a 10, then there'll be an oval around it, and if you get in that, it'll be a 9. So if you hit the deer in a head, it is only a 7, which is another thing that is interesting about 3D. If you hit the animal anywhere, it is always at least going to be 7 points. So it's a high risk, high reward form of archery, because if you miss the animal, it's a flat out 0. If people hunt, it might be what they start with.
We've talked to kids about, hey, you know, are you a hunter? Most of them say no. Most of their dads are standing in the background going, not yet.
If it were up to me, I would start them all here first and then go into hunting. Because once you learn this style of shooting, when you go to shoot for hunting, it's just so much, it's made me a way better shot.
Before going to state, Leela's teams compete in regional tournaments.
Everybody can still sign up for state. They have not gone into a qualification to go to state yet. It's not governed by MSHL, by the Minnesota High School League. It's not. It's still governed by NASC, National Archery in the School Program.
So the max number of competitors per tournament is 24. We've got 24 middle schoolers, so every score can count towards the team score, which is your top 12. 4 boys, 4 girls, and then the next 4 best. Individually, then, they're competing on a scale of 300. They're competing against everybody else that's in their age group. Boys compete against boys, girls compete against girls. An average score for a beginning archer and stuff can be in that low 200s, mid 200s, somewhere in there.
Some of those kids we've had go from 220 to 280 in a single year, and they had never touched a bow before. When we first started with the kids that we had, we were really excited when somebody broke 100. And as those coaches learned how to teach them and get them competitive faster, well, once that happened, it snowballed from there. It's like, hey, you know, it doesn't take us 2 or 3 years to get somebody shooting competitive anymore. We can get them, some of them, we can get them shooting competitively right out of the gate.
Beside competitive teams, Leela has a non-competitive archery club for 4th through 6th graders to introduce them to the sport. That's how the school's archery program started in 2011.
And Leela at the time only went to 6th grade. So they didn't have a middle school or a high school at the time. My son was in 4th grade, and all of a sudden I saw this notice for archery. And I've been shooting archery since probably 91 myself. Actually, the sign up was for kids, but they were also looking for parents to help coach. We knew some of the coaches from White Bear. And White Bear invited us to their holiday tournament. So we're like, holiday tournament? Well, that sounds like fun. It was right before the holiday break. Yeah, we'll go shoot some arrows. The coaches could shoot and the kids could shoot. And they had such a good time. And at the time, we had no idea that there were other tournaments. We didn't know that there was this big state program where all these schools got together and shot in these tournaments on Saturday in the winter. We went to our first tournament where there was all these other schools. All these kids that are going up there getting their trophies and their medals, and we're like, looking at the other coaches, I'm like, we got to do this. Our kids would love this.
And as we built the upper school and expanded in our grades, then the archery club in 2015-16 turned into a team.
My brother wanted to shoot, but I did not at all. So my mom kind of signed us both up without telling me. And on the first night, she was like, well, tonight we have something special we have to go to. And I really did not want to go, like kicking, screaming, like, please do not make me go. But I ended up going and shooting. And by the end of the night, I went home and was like, when am I getting my own bow and how long can I shoot? When we first started out, we just had a middle school and we barely even had 12 archers. And at tournaments, it's 12 archers that make up a team, and that's how you get your score.
Two of my good friends, Stella and Noah, basically said, we need one more person for a high school team. And I said, sure. How hard can it be? They didn't necessarily need me to be good, they just needed to be able to qualify because they had such good archers already that it didn't really matter who else was shooting for them, they just needed one more person. And here we are, 4 years later, I'm still in archery.
When we first started with our archery team, a lot of the teams that we were up against, they had, like Matamidai or Malacca, like those huge programs that have hundreds of archers.
And then the team got bigger and we had more kids interested. We started all of a sudden, we'd win one medal a year. It's like, all right, we're on our way, right? And then we win a trophy and a couple medals. And then next thing you know, we're winning 40 to 80 medals a year and we're winning all kinds of trophies, and now a couple of state championships and a nice third place finish at 3D in nationals. And so the program has come a long way. It's been a lot of work.
It's a really engaged group. People, it's a lot of hours. The number of hours that the coaching staff puts into the season between practices 3 hours a night. Every Saturday we're there. It's almost a full day affair and stuff. From starting in November, we're practicing. Tournaments start in January and we go through March through the state tournament, and then if we go to nationals, we'll keep on going through April.
There's a ton of schools that are now shooting because it's a constantly growing sport.
You don't have to be athletic to be in the sport. I also play volleyball, and that to some extent you have to be able to run. You don't have to be able to walk for archery.
Tonight we have a kid in a walking boot. He would have been out of action for how many weeks when he broke his ankle, and instead he's on the line every week. I've seen kids that could not compete in most high school sports, but also being part of a team that's been as successful as we have. So you see kids that are in wheelchairs that are on the line competing in tournaments.
Anybody can shoot, anybody. I've had kids walk up to the line with holding the bow upside down. No idea what they were doing, and turn around and end up being pretty good archers. If you're a school that doesn't have archery and you see this and you're like, God, we want that, let us know. We're more than happy to help any other school, anywhere we can reach. White Bear Lake helped us get set up, and that's how it works. And the community of archery schools throughout the whole state is pretty tight. And I've had so many parents say, this is it. This is our last hope of getting them involved in something because nothing else is stuck. It's like, you came to the right place, because most of them stick.
We actually first noticed this in lakes on Isle Royale National Park, one of the most protected places in the world. And it's located on an island in the middle of Lake Superior. So what could be going on to cause algae blooms in these lakes?
All of the milkweed that you can see here around me, it actually is one plant. So the rhizomes are its root system underground.
Cyanobacteria, known as blue-green algae, produces toxic blooms that can be harmful to animals. The aquatic plant often shows up in waters polluted with nutrient runoff. Now, surprisingly, blue-green algae is also being detected in some of our most pristine wilderness environments, and researchers at the St. Croix Watershed Research Station are trying to figure out why.
We actually first noticed this in lakes on Isle Royale National Park, one of the most protected places in the world. And it's located on an island in the middle of Lake Superior. So what could be going on to cause algae blooms in these lakes? We usually attribute algae blooms to things like pollution either coming from agricultural or urban environments that are close by, that we can clearly track the source to the water. Here, there's no obvious connection like that. As we work on it more and more, we're kind of realizing that this actually may have been going on for decades. It's just that because of the remote nature of these lakes, often this will happen without anyone noticing or commenting on it. Through kind of increased awareness, both from citizen scientists who are out there, backpacking in the boundary waters or elsewhere, as well as the use of remote sensing, so actually satellite imagery, we've been able to start to pick these things up more frequently and realize that this is a more widespread issue than we initially thought. And so we think it may be, changing weather patterns that might be related to a changing climate, as well as sources that don't respect boundaries, so atmospheric sources, so the actual transport of nutrients through the air, whether that be through ash in forest fires, through dust that's just we know is moved continentally. And so we actually have set up a monitoring network that basically boxes in our sites in the Superior National Forest that's measuring dry fall as well as nutrients and precipitation, so we can get a handle on how much of an issue this could be.
Not all algae is toxic, like a filamentous variety found in the backwaters of the St. Croix River.
Here you can see there's a lot of algae growing in the water, and it's this sort of beautiful green slimy stuff. It's not dangerous or bad. It looks a little nasty, but it doesn't produce any toxins or anything like that. It's a group that's called Spirogyra. You can feel that they're big and they're slimy. They form these long filaments, and what they're doing is they're loving the fact that the water temperature's gotten a little cooler. There's a lot of nutrients still in the water, and they're loving that it's nice and sunny today. So you can see there's even bubbles in the mats of algae because they're photosynthesizing, producing oxygen.
It does look a bit slimy and probably isn't your people's favorite thing to wade through, but it's actually not cause for alarm at all.
Non-toxic algae may actually help control cyanobacteria.
It produces oxygen, and it competes with those cyanobacteria, so it helps keep them from being able to take over a system if you have a healthy non-toxic algae population. Of course, they're all competing for the same nutrients and light, and so having these here kind of protects some of these systems from being taken over by those nastier types of algae. A lot of people, they think of aquatic plants as a nuisance, and some of the invasive ones definitely are, like curly-leaf pondweed and Eurasian milfoil. But the native plants are actually our best defenders against harmful algal blooms in our lakes, because they basically suck all that phosphorus and nitrogen right out of the water, and they hold it in their biomass all summer long and basically keep it away from the cyanobacteria. And there's actually a whole body of science that tracks how when you lose aquatic plants, you flip lakes over into this what's called a plankton or algae-dominated state. Those aquatic plants are usually a sign of good health because they can only grow where you have good transparency, good light penetration, and they also are a good way to protect your lake from those kind of nasty algae blooms that could come if they weren't there.
Stories about research into invasive aquatic algae, plants, and animals are sponsored in part by the Aquatic Invasive Species Task Forces of Wright, Meeker, Yellow Medicine, Lac-qui-Parle, Swift, and Big Stone counties. We can stop aquatic hitchhikers from infesting more lakes and streams by cleaning up everything we pull out of the water. It's a simple drill. Clean in, clean out. Before leaving a water access, clean your boat and water equipment. Remove and dispose of all plants and aquatic species in the trash. Drain water from your boat, ballast tanks, motor, live well, and bait container. Remove drain plugs and keep drain plugs out while transporting equipment. Dispose of unwanted bait in the trash. To keep live bait, drain the water and refill the bait container with bottled or tap water. And if you have been in infested waters, also spray your boat with high-pressure water. Rinse with very hot water. Dry for at least 5 days. Stop the spread of AIS.
Super exciting right now. We are standing in a milkweed colony, and I've never had the pleasure of really standing in such an established colony. It's a real treat because obviously due to habitat loss, this lovely milkweed plant is threatened, as are so many others. What it is, when I say colony, all of the milkweed that you can see here around me, it actually is one plant. So the rhizomes are its root system underground, and then these little plants pop up. So they are all connected, they are all one. And these three here are actually a really great example of what we can talk about today. So milkweed has 3 different stages of harvest, and we're gonna talk about sustainable harvest too, because that is of the utmost importance. But in the spring, and obviously we're getting to be late summer right now, but in the spring, those rhizomes underground that we can't see, they pop up the shoots, which would be the young plants emerging from the soil. And those shoots are edible when young, and they taste a bit like asparagus. So then as the season goes on, the plant continues to mature and grow, and then we reach a stage, I'm gonna say early July, even now we're seeing, here in August, we're seeing these tight clusters. Those are called umbels. So every plant has right around 2 to 5, and these tight little flower clusters, they continue to grow until they bloom. They have their stem that grows out of the stalk, and then each individual flower has its own stem. And what's cool is there's about 60 different, up to 60 flowers on an umbel. Each flower on this umbel can produce up to 1 to 2 milk pods if they are pollinated. So we need those pollinators as well. And then what happens is you get this stage. So after the flower petals have dried, you get something like that, and then it starts growing the pod. And that's the seed pod, and what we're here to talk about today, because it's also a delicious edible. For one umbel, which again, there's, up to about 5 on a plant, depending on how many of those flowers on each umbel are pollinated determines how many seed pods you're gonna get. But on a plant, I've seen around 20, and I've seen as few as 1 or 2. So when I am out harvesting milkweed, obviously sustainability is at the forefront of my mind. All the insects and pollinators that need these plants to sustain themselves, they are first and foremost in my mind. So when I harvest, I am only going to take 1 or 2 small pods per plant. And I'm not gonna hit every plant around me. I am gonna stagger my harvest. But what I'm looking for is pods that are, for me, about 1 to 2 inches. So I'm gonna go for the small pods that have a little bit of firmness to them. And so I'm just gonna take one off. And here you can see the sappy residue. That's actually toxic to humans if it's not cooked. So a very fine edible when cooked, but this sap actually has been used throughout time. Wart removal, various skin issues, dysentery, kind of stomach issues. But again, you want to cook the shoots of the milkweed, you want to cook the umbels, and you want to cook the pods. And so what I'm gonna do, again, only 1 or 2 per plant. This has several pods that are still gonna be forming, and this has got quite a few pods on it already, but I am only gonna take 1. For me, this is the perfect size that I wanna harvest. And again, you just kinda wanna feel it, you know, push on it a little bit, see that it's got some firmness to it. And when you cut it open, it's gonna look like this. And so this white flesh is what's going to be seeds, and you can kind of see they're all white, but you can see the seed pod. And so you want them small. If they get large and get going later in the season, you're gonna cut this open and you're gonna have fluff, and you're gonna have a whole bunch of black seeds in there. So again, we want it when it looks white and fleshy like this. And then what I do for my pods is I'm gonna bring them home and I'm gonna scald these in boiling water for about 3 minutes, and then of course put them into cold water to stop that cooking process. From that point, I can freeze them and enjoy a little bit of summer in the winter time, or you know, I can chop them up, incorporate them in some kind of skillet dish. I think they're technically considered a vegetable. To me, they taste like one, and so that is how I treat them when I cook with them. A very earthy green, kind of broccoli, asparagus, Brussels sprouts, kind of along those lines. It's just a really rich green flavor. So one of my favorite things.
Funding for Prairie Sportsman is provided by the Minnesota Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund, as recommended by the Legislative Citizen Commission on Minnesota Resources, and by Mark and Margaret Yackel-Julien on behalf of Shalom Hill Farm, a retreat and conference center in a prairie setting near Windham, Minnesota, on the web at shalomhillfarm.org, and by Live Wide Open, Western Minnesota Prairie Waters, and the members of Pioneer PBS.